As sun sets on summer and dusk brings fall, the days grow short and the nights grow long. As dawn brings winter, the skies become gray and the wind grows cold. By the fireside is where the stories are told.
The night had drawn in over Fife, the fields wet with a steady drizzle that had misted the hedgerows and dimmed the lantern lights strung along the lanes. Kelly Castle loomed beyond the trees, its gray stone walls darkened by rain and shadow. The place had always seemed older than the land itself, a structure whose stones carried the weight of centuries. Travelers often paused on the road outside, sensing something in the silence around it, as if the walls themselves held their breath and listened. It was here that James Lorimer had lived, and it was here the villagers whispered that he still walked. James Lorimer had been a lawyer and a man of reputation in the 19th century, a figure of learning and pride who had restored Kelly Castle to some of its former glory. Yet in the years after his death, stories began to circulate. Guests spoke of footsteps in deserted corridors, the sound of heavy boots crossing flagstones where no one walked. The library, filled with books he had loved, seemed to carry a chill even in summer. At first his family dismissed these tales, but they grew persistent, and the sense of his presence became hard to ignore. The story begins with Clara, a visitor to Scotland who had come from Edinburgh to sketch old houses and castles. She was drawn to Kelly Castle, not by its beauty, but by its atmosphere. When she arrived, the caretaker led her through the lower rooms, pointing out portraits and carved beams. Yet it was the library that caught her attention. The air was colder here, and she swore she heard a faint scratching, as though a pen dragged across parchment. She asked if others had noticed it, and the caretaker smiled tightly, saying that some claimed John Lorimer had never left his books behind. That night Clara was granted permission to stay in one of the upper rooms. She set her easel in the window, sketched the towers silhouetted against the moonlight. Around midnight she paused, for she heard something stir in the hallway. The sound was deliberate, the measured tread of someone walking with authority. She opened her door slightly, peered out, but saw only darkness. Yet the sound did not cease. It passed her door and moved down toward the library below. Against her better judgment, she followed. The stairwell smelled of damp stone, and the faint glow of the moon lit the walls through narrow slits. When she reached the library, she found the door already ajar. Inside, the fire had gone out, but the air shimmered with a presence. At the desk sat a figure, hunched over as though reading. His form was faint, like smoke given shape, yet there was no mistake. The dark coat, the spectacles glinting faintly, or the white collar. He seemed absorbed in the pages before him, unaware of her intrusion. Clara stood frozen, yet compelled. She whispered his name, uncertain why. At that, the figure paused, his head turned slightly, but where she expected eyes, there was only shadow. The figure rose. The book upon the desk fluttered as if caught in a breeze, though the windows were shut tight. Clara stumbled back, but the figure did not advance. Instead, he lifted a hand, pointed towards the shelves along the far wall. She looked, and for the first time noticed one volume set apart from the others. Its spine cracked and faded. She reached for it, and when her fingers touched the leather, the figure vanished. The silence that followed was oppressive, as though the very castle listened again. The book was a legal text, its margins filled with notes in Lorimer's own hand. But tucked within its pages was a folded letter, yellow with age. Clara opened it carefully, reading words written in haste. It spoke of unfinished work, of matters left unsettled, of a fear that time would erase what he had built. It was not addressed to anyone, nor was it signed, but it carried the tone of confession. Clara felt the weight of it, as though the ghost himself had asked her to bear witness. She carried the letter to the caretaker the next morning, who paled at the sight. He admitted he had never known of such a thing hidden in the library, though many had searched the books before. Clara asked if Lorimer's spirit haunted the castle because of this unfinished business. The caretaker only shook his head and said some men carry their pride beyond the grave. In the weeks that followed, Clara returned to Edinburgh, but she could not shake the memory. She dreamed often of the figure in the library, his hand pointing, his presence both commanding and sorrowful. She returned to Kelly Castle once more years later, and the caretaker told her others had seen him too, always near the books, always lingering as though tethered to words and ink. Some claimed he appeared only to those who respected learning, as though he closed his company carefully. Others believed he searched for something never completed, perhaps a work of law or philosophy that remained unfinished in his death, or at his death. Yet all agreed that his presence was not of malice, but of unease, a restless energy that bound him to the castle. But there were darker stories as well. One night winter evening, a man tasked with repairing the roof swore he had seen Lorimer at an upper window, his face pressed to the glass, though the room behind him was locked and empty. The man fled, refusing to work again at Kelly Castle. Another tale spoke of a guest who woke to find the ghost at the foot of her bed, silent and watchful. She left before dawn, never to return. Clara, however, believed she had glimpsed something of the truth. The letter she found seemed to her a sign that Lorimer's spirit was caught between pride and regret, bound to the books that had defined him. She wondered if, by discovering the hidden words, she had given him some release. Yet each time she heard of another sighting, she knew his story was not yet finished. As the years passed, Kelly Castle became known not only for its beauty, but for its hauntings. Visitors spoke of cold drafts that swept through the library, the sound of pages turning when no one was near, the sudden scent of ink or candle wax. Some said the figure could be seen by the fire, others by the window where he once read in daylight. Clara returned one final time, standing in the library alone, waiting. She whispered again, calling his name softly. For a moment the air seemed to stir, and she felt the presence at her side. The book shifted, a single volume, sliding forward from the shelf. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. What she found within was not another letter, but notes of philosophy, lines that spoke of the soul and its journey. In the margin, one sentence had been underlined heavily. The spirit is bound to that which it loves most. Clara closed the book, and tears filled her eyes. She understood then that Lorimer's ghost would never leave, for his love of knowledge and his pride in his work bound him eternally to the castle. To this day, the library remains the heart of his haunting. Those who dared to linger there after dark sometimes glimpse the figure of James Lorimer, hunched over his books, forever reading, forever writing, caught between the silence of death and the life of the mind he so cherished. The castle may rest in stone, but its halls still echo with his presence, and those who enter know that learning itself has left its ghost behind.
As sun sets on summer and dusk brings fall, the days grow short and the nights grow long. As dawn brings winter, the skies become gray, and the wind grows cold. By By the fireside is where the stories are told.